The mirror in our cramped bathing chamber offered no mercy, reflecting back a girl who seemed crafted for obscurity, pale cheeks, ash-blonde hair falling limp past narrow shoulders, jade eyes dulled by years of lowered gazes. At 20, Eloan Vale, was a shadow in Eldermore Pack, where beauty and strength howled for attention under the moon's watchful eye. The mating ceremony loomed, a night when unmated females vied for the Alpha King's favor, but for me, it was just another veil of exclusion. Stop preening, Eloan. There's naught but emptiness staring back, Thalira's voice slithered from the doorway, her crimson gown hugging curves that had bewitched my father 3 years past, mere months after mother's passing. Servants need aid below. At least there, you're unseen. I fingered mother's pendant, a wooden wolf, head tilted to a carved moon, her dying gift. Strength when shadows summon, she'd rasped. Words I clung to like lifelines in storms of Thalira's scorn. Perhaps I could observe, I ventured softly. All unmated are welcome. Thalira's laugh cut sharp. Observe? In rags? You'd shame us, your father most. He agrees, serve in kitchens. Father, once Pack's fiercest warrior, now withered by illness, yielded to her whims, his voice a whisper where it once roared. I nodded, swallowing bitterness, tying my apron for the kitchens. The Packland sprawled through misty valleys and ancient forests, centered on the moon glade where bonfires would blaze. Alpha King Thorn Blackwood's visit was legend, ruler of scattered packs, attending only pivotal rites. His choice could elevate a family to glory. Kitchens buzzed, his guard, 20 warriors, fierce as storms, gossiped Mira, a kind beta. Thorn scarred from border wars, shifts like lightning. I arranged platters, envy twisting for the ribboned females. As dusk fell, the Lyra inspected, serve main table. Silent, shadowed. Stepsister Lyrian, 19 and radiant in gold, smirked. Perhaps a blind guard fancies ghosts. I bore it, invisibility my armor. Twilight deepened, horns announced the king. From shadows, I watched warriors enter, tall, vigilant. Then Thorn, towering, dark mane, silver eyes absorbing firelight, a scar curving his jaw like fate's mark. Pack Alpha Garrick greeted, welcome, Thorn. Ceremony danced, females presented. Lyrian approached, veil lowered, Thorn nodded politely, no spark. Garrick, any please you? Thorn scanned, one unseen. His finger pointed, me. Gasps. Her. The Lyra rose, horrified. Warriors escorted me forward. Look up, Thorn commanded. Our eyes met, silver storm to jade calm. Something shifted, a pull ancient as moons. He draped his cloak as veil, lifting it gently. I choose her. The world tilted, my life reborn in moonlight. The silence that followed Thorn's declaration was not empty, it was alive, stretched thin and vibrating with disbelief. It pressed against Eloan's ears until her pulse seemed louder than the murmurs beginning to ripple through the pack circle. Torches crackled. Wolves shifted uneasily. Even the night insects had gone still. Across the clearing, the Lyra's glare cut like a blade. It was sharp, proprietary, and burning with something far more dangerous than anger, fear of displacement. Garrick, the Alpha's second, cleared his throat and bowed stiffly. Perhaps, a private discussion would be wise, sire. There is nothing to discuss, Thorn said calmly, though the air thickened instantly with authority. His gaze never left Eloan. My choice stands. The words landed like a thunderclap. A stir at the edge of the crowd announced her father's arrival. He was pale, leaning heavily on a guard's arm, his once broad shoulders bowed by years of quiet defeat. This is unexpected, he said carefully. My daughter was not prepared for such attention, sire. Thorn turned then, his eyes flicking briefly to the older man before returning to Eloan. Why has she been kept hidden? The Lyra stepped forward smoothly, her voice silk-wrapped steel. Eloan is sensitive to crowds. It was thought best she remain away from formal gatherings. Thorn's stare sharpened. Was that her choice? All eyes turned to Eloan. Her throat tightened. The pendant at her chest warmed, a low hum pulsing against her skin like a living thing. She swallowed. No, sire. The clearing erupted. Whispers broke into open murmurs. Heads leaned together. Names were spoken, comparisons made. Thorn lifted a hand once, and the noise died immediately. Come, he said, extending his arm toward Eloan. You will speak freely. He guided her away from the firelight to a tent set apart from the others, its entrance draped in pale linen that fluttered softly in the night breeze. Inside, the glow was gentler, the shadows deeper. For the first time since the announcement, Eloan could breathe. She faced him, hands clenched. Why me? Thorn studied her as if the answer were written beneath her skin. Because your scent calls to my wolf, he said quietly. Because when you entered the clearing, something ancient stirred. Her heart stumbled. You mean, a bond? The word felt dangerous on her tongue. Every child of the packs knew the legends, fated mates, rare and uncontrollable, capable of uniting clans or tearing them apart. Before he could answer, the tent flaps snapped open. The Lyra strode in, eyes blazing. This is a misunderstanding, she said sharply. Lyrian is better suited. Stronger. Proven. Thorn's growl was low, primal, and unmistakably real. The air trembled. Leave. The Lyra froze, shock flashing across her face before it hardened into rage. Without another word, she turned and vanished into the night. Eloan's father stepped forward then, his voice breaking. I thought keeping you small would keep you safe, he said. Forgive my weakness. She reached for him, but before she could speak, Thorn returned, his presence filling the tent like gravity. You have a choice, he said to Eloan, no command in his tone now, only truth. Do you accept this bond? The pendant pulsed once. Strong. Certain. Yes, she whispered. The howl that rose from the pack was thunderous, approval, awe, and hunger woven together beneath the moon. Torches flared brighter. Somewhere beyond the tents, a furious scream echoed, sharp with promise. That night, Eloan stood at the Alpha's side for the first time. And in the shadows, jealousy learned her name. Life within Thorn's den revealed itself slowly, and never gently. By day, the stronghold was a place of disciplined order, stone corridors echoing with measured footsteps, banners of ancient packs hanging like silent witnesses, guards watching from every archway. By night, it transformed into something far more dangerous. Whispers slithered through the halls, carried on candle smoke and half-smiles. Eloan learned quickly that the Lyra had not retreated. She had only changed tactics. Plain little thing, Eloan overheard one woman murmur as she passed. Must be spells, another replied. No Alpha would choose her otherwise. The rumors spread like rot beneath fresh snow, quiet, persistent, and deliberate. Thorn assigned Eloan duties that placed her at the heart of the den. She accompanied hunting parties at dawn, learning the rhythm of the wolves and the unspoken rules of survival. She sat in on council meetings, listening while elders debated borders, alliances, and the growing unrest among the outer packs. It was intimate work, dangerously so for someone still considered unproven. Through it all, Thorn remained distant. He never touched her in public. Never contradicted a council member on her behalf. Yet his silver eyes followed her constantly, lingering too long, darkening when others spoke too sharply, flaring with something feral when danger edged too close. His restraint was not indifference. It was control. The banquet confirmed it. The great hall was filled with music and firelight when Lyrian took the seat beside Eloan, his smile easy, his interest unmistakable. He praised her composure, her intelligence, her strength, loud enough for others to hear. Across the table, the Lyra watched, lips curved in something like satisfaction. Eloan felt the trap tightening. Later that night, a folded note appeared beneath her chamber door. The pendant is not protection. It is a key. Tomas. Her breath caught. She found Tomas in the Eastern Library, his expression grim as he closed the door behind them. Your mother's lineage was hidden, he said quietly. Alpha blood. Old blood. Strong enough to awaken bonds others cannot survive. Eloan's fingers curled around the pendant, now warm against her skin. Everything, Thorn's reaction, the court's fear, the Lyra's fury, fell into terrifying clarity. Thorn found her before dawn. I feel the bond pulling, he admitted, standing too close in the half-light. Every instinct urges me to claim you fully. But duty comes first. A divided court would tear you apart. The honesty hurt more than distance ever could. The gut punch came that evening. A gift arrived at Eloan's chambers, rare wine infused with moon herbs, presented as a peace offering from the Lyra. The scent was wrong. Too sweet. Too sharp. Eloan remembered the hunts, the way poison prey smelled just before collapse. She did not drink. Instead, she brought the cup to Thorn. She means to kill me quietly, Eloan said, steady despite the fear clawing at her ribs. Expose her. Thorn's jaw tightened. If we move too soon, she'll deny it, and rally those already loyal. Then we wait, Eloan said. Let her reveal herself. Thorn studied her, something fierce and approving flickering in his eyes. Danger will follow. I know, she replied. It already does. As they parted, Eloan felt it, the shift in the air, the tightening of threads she could not yet see. The Court of Wolves had chosen its battleground. And the Lyra would not strike twice without drawing blue. Training began before dawn. Mist clung to the valley below Thorn's den, the forest hushed as though holding its breath. Eloan stood barefoot on cold stone, the air biting her skin, every nerve alive with anticipation. Thorn circled her slowly, not as Alpha, but as something closer, teacher, guardian, equal in waiting. Control is not dominance, he said. It is understanding. She nodded, though her hands trembled. Since the bond had stirred, her senses had sharpened beyond reason. She could hear heartbeats through walls. Smell fear before it spoke. And beneath it all, her wolf stirred, restless and curious. Close your eyes, Thorn instructed. Let her rise, but do not surrender. Eloan obeyed. The world tilted. Heat rushed through her veins, wild and luminous. Her vision fractured into flashes, a different forest, older and vast, where banners bearing a crescent sigil flew above a gathered pack. A woman stood at its center, tall and unbowed, her eyes the same silver-flecked gray Eloan saw in her own reflection. My mother, Eloan whispered. The pendant flared, light spilling between her fingers. Symbols etched long ago burned clear, no longer dormant. Thorn inhaled sharply. The lost Alpha line, he said. They told us it was extinguished. Eloan staggered, the truth slamming into her chest. She was not hidden out of shame. She had been hidden out of fear. Thorn knelt before her then, not in submission, but in recognition. You are not my mate because of fate alone, he said quietly. You are my equal. The words settled into her bones. That night, the bond surged dangerously close to breaking restraint. In the quiet of Thorn's chambers, the air crackled with unspent energy. They stood inches apart, breath mingling, every instinct screaming completion. But Thorn stepped back. Not yet, he said hoarsely. If we cross that line now, the court will fracture beyond repair. The restraint hurt more than denial. The distance between them was thin as a blade, and just as sharp. The gut punch came at dusk the following day. The Lyra knew. Eloan sensed it before the warning reached her, guards moving too fast, tension spiking across the den. Then the attack came. Silent. Coordinated. Wolves loyal to the Lyra struck as Eloan crossed the outer path, chains infused with suppressive runes snapping shut around her wrists. She did not scream. She howled. The sound tore through the mountains, raw and commanding, carrying not fear but authority. Wolves answered, from the forest, from hidden passes, from packs long thought neutral. Allies surged toward the den as the chains shattered under a force the Lyra had underestimated. Thorn arrived in a storm of fury, tearing through the attackers with lethal precision. He reached Eloan's side just as the last traitor fell. Far from the den, a horn sounded, ancient and unmistakable. The Lyra's banner rose on the eastern ridge. War had been declared. And this time, Eloan did not step back into the shadows. She stepped forward as Alphaborn. War did not arrive with a single blow. It crept in on whispered oaths and broken loyalties. By dawn, Thorn's scouts returned with grim news. The Lyra had forged alliances with rival packs long held at bay by fragile treaties. Promises of power, shared territory, and vengeance had bought her an army. Banners rose along the borders like wounds reopening, each one a reminder that unity had always been an illusion. Inside the den, fear churned beneath forced calm. Eloan felt it all, and more. The bond had sharpened her awareness beyond the physical. She sensed hesitation before betrayal, dread before panic, courage struggling to rise beneath doubt. And with each passing hour, her power surged, no longer flickering but roaring, answering her will as if it had waited generations for her voice. When the first attack came, it was brutal and deliberate. The Lyra's forces struck from the eastern ridge under cover of fog, driving straight toward the heart of the den. Thorn led the countercharge, his presence a rallying force, his commands precise and unyielding. Eloan stood beside him, not behind, calling orders, reinforcing defenses, moving like instinct made flesh. The battle shattered the forest's silence. Steel rang. Wolves collided. The ground shook with snarls and howls that echoed into the mountains. Eloan fought without thought, power flowing through her hands in burning arcs that repelled attackers and strengthened allies. The pack responded, not out of obedience, but belief. Then Thorn fell. A blade infused with rune iron tore into his side, severing muscle and magic alike. He staggered, dropping to one knee as his guards closed ranks too late. Panic ripped through the bond, sharp and blinding. Eloan reached him before anyone else. Blood soaked her hands as she pressed them to the wound, terror and fury crashing together. Without thinking, she cut her palm and let her blood fall against his skin. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Light exploded outward, forcing the battlefield into stunned stillness. Thorn gasped as ancient sigils flared across his body, power long dormant roaring awake. His wound sealed beneath Eloan's touch, strength flooding back into him, not borrowed, but unlocked. The bond had changed. Thorn rose transformed, eyes blazing silver white, his presence crushing in its authority. With a single command, the tide turned. The Lyra's forces broke under the onslaught, her carefully gathered allies scattering when faced with power they had not anticipated. She tried to flee. Eloan intercepted her at the tree line. Thalira's defeat was swift and undeniable, stripped of allies, exposed before the pack she had betrayed. She was bound, snarling promises of ruin even as she was dragged away. The forest fell silent once more. That night, the elders gathered beneath the moon, their expressions grave as ancient texts were unsealed. One spoke the words none had dared consider. The bond between them fulfills an old prophecy, he said. An heir born of alpha blood and awakened power. Neither fully wolf nor bound by old limits. Eloan's breath caught. A hybrid heir, capable of uniting packs, or ending them. Thorn's hand found hers, steady and unafraid. Outside, the moon climbed higher. And destiny sharpened its teeth. The prophecy did not unfold quietly. It announced itself with a blood moon, rising heavy and red above the mountains, staining the snow and stone alike. The elders gathered in the inner circle, their faces pale as the ancient markings along the floor ignited one by one. Eloan knew before they spoke. Her body had changed, subtle at first. Heightened senses beyond even the bond. A steady warmth beneath her ribs that pulsed in time with the pendant's glow. When the truth was confirmed, the chamber fell into stunned silence. The heir lives, an elder said. The prophecy is awake. Fear and reverence collided. News spread faster than containment could stop it. By nightfall, rival clans moved, drawn by terror and ambition alike. Under the blood moon's gaze, enemies converged, convinced that if the prophecy was ended now, the future could still be controlled. They struck without warning. The outer defenses shattered under the weight of coordinated assault. Fires bloomed along the ridges. The den shook as ancient wards strained and cracked. Thorn led the defense with relentless precision, but even his awakened power could not be everywhere at once. Eloan stepped forward. This time, she did not resist her wolf. The transformation was not chaos, it was clarity. Her wolf emerged fully, vast and luminous, silver-veined with moonlight, her presence bending the battlefield around her. With every movement, enemies fell back, not destroyed mindlessly, but broken in will, their courage stripped away. The rival forces fled beneath her howl. In the aftermath, as ash drifted through the air, Thorn found Eloan standing alone at the edge of the den. He rested his forehead against hers, voice rough with truth. "You saved me," he said. "Not just from wounds, but from the shadows I lived in before you." Before she could answer, a cry cut through the stillness. Her father lay among the fallen, having triggered the final ward that sealed the inner gates. The cost had been his life. Eloan knelt beside him as dawn approached, grief hollowing her chest even as the pack bowed their heads. His sacrifice had bought them survival, but at a price that could never be repaid. As the sun crested the horizon, a messenger arrived breathless and shaken. "The throne is being challenged," he said. "By blood. By law." Thorn straightened slowly. The war had shifted. And the crown was no longer secure. The council convened at dawn. Stone seats circled the ancient fire pit, elders standing instead of sitting, an unspoken signal of judgment. The air was brittle with tension as Eloan stepped forward beside Thorn, the weight of the blood moon still lingering in every gaze. "The prophecy has tipped the balance," one elder declared. "Too much power rests in one bloodline." Another followed, voice sharp with fear disguised as reason. "For the safety of the packs, Eloan must be exiled until the child is born." The word struck like a blade. Thorn's answer was immediate. "No." The single syllable carried the force of law. "She leaves only if I fall. And if you press this decree, you invoke the trial of the hunt." Gasps rippled through the circle. The trial was ancient, brutal and final. If invoked, challengers would be allowed to hunt the alphas chosen under moon law. Survival meant legitimacy. Failure meant death. The council hesitated. Then nodded. The hunt began at sunset. That night, before the forest swallowed them, Thorn and Eloan stood alone beneath the old oaks where bonds were once sealed. The world felt narrow, fragile, as if dawn might never come. "This may change us forever," Thorn said quietly. "It already has," Eloan replied. They completed the mating not in spectacle, but in ritual, hands joined, foreheads pressed together, their wolves rising as one. The bond locked into place with a surge of warmth and certainty, power settling rather than exploding. No witnesses. No ceremony. Only truth. When they parted, Eloan's visions came. Paths unfolded before her, branches snapping, shadows moving, danger converging. She guided Thorn through the forest with quiet certainty, leading him away from ambushes, into terrain where the hunter's arrogance betrayed them. One by one, the challengers fell, not always by claw or blade, but by misstep, exhaustion, fear turned inward. By dawn, only one presence remained ahead. Eloan stopped, breath shallow. "He's waiting," she said. "The one who challenged the throne." Thorn tightened his grip on her hand. "Then this ends." The forest went silent. The final confrontation awaited. The eclipse began as a shadow creeping across the moon, slow, deliberate, inevitable. The forest stood frozen beneath it, breath held, as two forces converged in the ancient hollow where trials were meant to end and legacies were decided. Torches ringed the clearing, their flames bending unnaturally as if aware they were witnesses to something that would be remembered long after they guttered out. Thorn stepped forward first, the alpha's mark glowing faintly at his throat. His presence alone quieted the murmurs rippling through the gathered packs. Across from him emerged the rival alpha, tall, scarred, wrapped in authority stolen and sharpened by ambition. His eyes flicked to Eloan, then back to Thorn, and his smile carried the promise of blood. "This ends tonight," the rival alpha said. "One of us walks away. One becomes legend." Thorn answered without ceremony. "So be it." The signal was given. They collided like storms. The impact split the ground beneath their feet, power cracking outward in visible waves. Thorn fought with precision honed by years of restraint, every strike measured, every movement anchored in control. The rival alpha answered with brute force, fueled by desperation and the belief that dominance alone could crown a king. Around them, chaos erupted. Those loyal to the Lyra surged forward, hoping to tip the balance in the confusion. They never reached the center. Eloan raised her hands. The eclipse deepened, the moon now a ring of fire in the sky. Power answered her call, not wild, not reckless, but vast and patient. The ground trembled as her wolf rose fully within her, not as a beast, but as a presence that bent the air and silenced the bold. Enemies faltered. Some dropped their weapons. Others fled outright, terror eclipsing loyalty. Eloan did not strike them down. She unmade their will to fight, unraveling the fear and fury that had driven them here. At the edge of the clearing, the Lyra watched, her confidence finally cracking. She tried to retreat, slipping into the shadows she once controlled so easily. Eloan felt her movement like a thread snapping. "No more," Eloan said, her voice carrying across the clearing without effort. The ground shifted, roots coiling up around Lyra's feet, binding her fast. The gathered packs turned as one, witnessing the end of the woman who had sown betrayal with honeyed words and poisoned smiles. The Lyra fell to her knees, rage curdling into disbelief. "You were never meant to stand here." "Neither were you," Eloan replied. The council elders stepped forward, judgment swift and final. The Lyra was stripped of title, of allies, of the fear she once wielded like a crown. As she was taken away, her screams faded, not into silence, but into irrelevance. At the heart of the clearing, the duel reached its breaking point. The rival Alpha lunged with a final, desperate strike. Thorn caught the blow, twisted, and drove him to the ground. For a breathless moment, everything stilled, the eclipse complete, the world suspended between darkness and light. Thorn stood victorious. He did not kill the fallen Alpha. Live, Thorn said, voice cold and absolute. And remember who spared you. The rival Alpha bowed his head, defeated in body and spirit. He was led away, his challenge ended not by death, but by truth. As the eclipse began to pass, moonlight returned in slow, silver bands. Eloan's knees weakened. The surge receded, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Thorn was at her side instantly, steadying her, his hand warm and sure. Then the pendant flared. Not with heat, but with a soft, aching light. Eloan gasped as a familiar presence brushed her senses, gentle and impossibly warm. The air shimmered, and for a heartbeat too fragile to name, her father stood before her, solid, smiling, unchanged by death. My brave girl, he said, voice quiet as dawn. Tears blurred her vision. I did everything you tried to protect me from. He laughed softly. You became everything I hoped you could be. He turned to Thorn, placing a spectral hand over both their joined hands. Guard her. Guard what comes after. I swear it, Thorn said, the vow binding itself into the world. The light faded. The pendant cooled. Dawn broke fully then, the eclipse gone, the forest bathed in gold. Wolves lifted their heads and howled, not in challenge, but in unity. The elders knelt. The packs followed. Thorn did not command it. Eloan did not ask for it. The new era arrived all the same, carried on the breath of a morning that felt different, cleaner, stronger, unafraid. As they stood together, watching the sun climb, Eloan felt the future stir, uncertain, dangerous, and alive. The age of shadows had ended. What rose in its place would change everything. Peace did not arrive all at once. It settled slowly, like frost melting beneath the morning sun. In the days following the eclipse, the packs gathered not in fear, but in cautious hope. Old banners were lowered. New ones were raised beside them, not symbols of dominance, but of unity. Disputes that had festered for generations were brought into the open and, for the first time, truly heard. At the center of it all stood Eloan. No longer hidden. No longer protected into silence. The elders named her Queen of the United Packs, not by blood alone, but by the will of wolves who had seen her stand when the world threatened to break. She did not take the crown with ceremony. She took it with humility, and that, more than power, secured their loyalty. Thorn ruled beside her, not above. Where once he had been iron and shadow, he now allowed warmth to temper strength. The Alpha who had ruled through restraint learned how to lead through trust. On the night of the full moon, they returned to the highest balcony of the den, the place where Eloan had once stood unsure, staring into a future she could not name. Lanterns glowed softly below. The forest breathed in quiet rhythm. Thorn took her hands. We were bound by fate, he said, voice low and steady. But I choose you, again. Freely. Eloan smiled, tears bright in her eyes. And I choose the world we build together. They renewed their vows not before a council, but beneath the moon that had watched them from the beginning. Wolves gathered below lifted their heads in a single, resonant howl, not of conquest, but of belonging. Seasons turned. When the child was born, the moon shone silver and calm. The air's cry was strong, echoing with both warmth and power, a life shaped by two legacies, unbroken by either. The elders felt it immediately. Hope. Not a weapon. Not a threat. A bridge. Eloan held her child and understood, fully at last, the journey she had walked, from the girl kept in shadows to the woman who had reshaped them. Love had not erased the darkness. It had taught her how to carry light through it. As dawn brushed the horizon, Thorn wrapped an arm around her, their bond steady and eternal. The moon faded. But its promise remained. And the future, at last, belonged to them all.